Hey Rachel, so when we're talking about bathroom design, there's a lot of plumbing to consider. So where should we start?
I typically like to start with pretty much the vanity faucet area. I feel like you can really build off of that style by choosing that one fixture. When you're kind of doing this on your own, it gets very overwhelming because there's a lot of options. So picking one style allows us to segue into, your shower fixtures, your accessories, even sometimes lighting, handle, stuff like that. So I typically like to start with the faucet and build off from there.
Okay, and what are some things that we should consider when we're looking at faucets for bathroom applications?
Things to consider are if you wanted to have something that has two handles, which we call a widespread, or a single hole faucet. Color is important, so whether or not you want to do polished nickel, chrome, or a beautiful gold finish, those are all things to consider. Height of the spout is also important, and then just basically how the rest of it kind of applies with it. So like your shower valves and the accessories as well.
There's so many schools of thoughts when it comes to faucets, and it's really dependent on the user. Sometimes if you have a really small powder room, going with a single hole can just give you a little bit more counter space to have some soaps and lotions out. But if you're in like a primary bathroom, then maybe you have a little bit more space on the vanity. If it's a double sinks, then you can have that widespread application there.
Yes, that is important. Sometimes single holes can look a little bit lost on large vanities, and sometimes widespreads can look a little bit too big on small ones. So things to consider is countertop space, usability, also whether or not you just kind of want a taller spout. Generally, single holes don't offer a lot of options for taller spouts. So it's really a blend on usability, having to temper with two handles versus one. Sometimes people with children prefer to have single hole versus widespread. It's all kind of based on usability and how much it blends within the rest of the design. Also, something else to consider is whether you want lever handles versus cross handles.
Right.
It's a functional reason, but also a style reason, whether you would want to do a cross handle versus a lever handle. Lever handles are a little bit more accessible. Cross handles are fun to look at, but sometimes not the easiest to use, whether you have dexterity issues or just for people in general who are not used to cross handles, might not know which way to turn the water on, or to increase or decrease the water temperature.
That's one of the main reasons I like California Faucet, is because they have really good quality. They have a range of finishes, but also it's somewhat semi-customizable between, being able to choose that lever versus the cross. Couple of these guys here, and you can really make it your own for what you're envisioning in your bathroom.
Yeah, you can really kind of customize it to make it so nobody else has a faucet like you. It's really a fun way to kind of, explore that design element of it. We've even gone as far as taking the top off of this and putting it on here just because someone didn't like a small detail on it. It really allows for a lot of flexibility to create the ultimate design.
I love that. And taking a look at the faucet design, once again, I'm seeing this gooseneck compared to the single hole as we discussed, and then even like this lower arc, which is kind of nice if we're running into some height issues with placing a mirror up top. Maybe this one's a little bit too tall.
Yeah, specifically for medicine cabinets, having a tall faucet like this sometimes impedes upon opening up a medicine cabinet, or you sometimes have to mount it a little bit too tall. So if you're of the shorter height, if the medicine cabinet's too tall, it's not functional. So they offer a myriad of different heights in a lot of their styles, which would allow you to have full flexibility on other pieces that typically land within your sink area.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's those little details that we're thinking about when looking at a bathroom overall. So say that I do like this faucet in particular. Where would I go next for my shower now?
So for your shower fixtures, a lot of times we ask what functions you're going to be using in your shower. Do you want a shower head? Do you want a hand shower? Are you doing a rain shower head? The reason why we choose the faucet first is because the style of the handle really translates over to the style of the shower valve. If you look at the handles here, it essentially has just gone and transferred over to the shower valve, creating a more cohesive and complete solution. Functionally, there are different ways we set it up, but stylistically, it is the easiest way to segue into what you're going to do in your shower.
Like you said, there's a lot of different ways someone can use a shower, and that, in a way, is kind of customizable based on the fixtures that you want in there. So could you tell me more about maybe this one in particular and what all the levers do?
Yeah, so this one right here is a thermostatic system. So what that means is you set the temperature and you don't have to turn it on to get to that temperature every time. What happens is you turn the water on up here and the water will come up to the temperature as soon as the hot water hits the valve. So unfortunately, if your water heaters down in the basement and the bathroom's up in the attic, it might take a couple of minutes, but you're not having to cycle through that cold to hot every time. This can be adjusted for different users, but it just allows for a more precise showering experience. This small handle right here is what we call a volume control. This one in particular has a dual function where it allows you to increase and decrease your volume, but it's also going to go and divert between, in this instance, a shower head and a hand shower.
So what I'm hearing is because that one diverts between the two, I can't have both my shower head and my hand shower operating at the same time.
On this particular one, that is correct. And if that is an important feature, which we do ask if you would ever want your shower head or hand shower on at the same time, we would switch to within the same style, but it could operate more like this style here, where you do have that temperature set too, but as you can see now we have two handles, and these are both volume controls, but they're not diverters, so they will turn each outlet on individually, so you can run them simultaneously.
Personally, I grew up with a pressure balance system, which we'll certainly touch on, but that's a little bit more intuitive where you're turning it on, finding the volume and the temperature at the same time, where this might be a little bit more complicated, but can offer a lot of different customizable features. And Rachel, as we mentioned pressure balance, can you show me an example of what that might look like?
Sure, so pressure balance is typically one handle where we don't have any volume control. It pretty much controls the temperature, but it has the same pressure. So you are going to turn it on and get your temperature every single time. So you have to go from cold to hot. So again, if you're using this as a guest, you're kind of knowing like, this is how I turn it on.
What if I want a hand shower along with that? How can I make that work?
Yeah, so typically with the pressure balance system, we would have to add either an integrated diverter like here, or it's usually a separate diverter to go between. So we need something to show the water which way to go. So it would typically be another diverter that would go between the shower head and hand shower.
So Rachel, when we're thinking about a hand shower, what are a couple of things we can consider?
To me, the biggest thing I ask is what you're using your hand shower for. Typically, if someone says they're using it only for cleaning, not as like a secondary shower or even their main source of showering, I tend to lean them more towards something that might be a little bit more simple. Like we call these wands, hand shower wands. They tend to be smaller, a little bit easier to hold, but only a small spray pattern comes out. It's stronger because it's smaller, so really good for cleaning, but maybe not replacing your everyday typical shower head. If someone wants something that has more functionality, say they want to use them at the same time, have your shower head and your hand shower going at the same time, or if it's for children, we might typically go for something a little bit bigger that has more functions to it, like a multi-function hand shower. So if someone says they're just using it for cleaning, maybe a little bit simpler is what we go for.
Yeah, I like how this one is just simply on a bracket and you can just take it off and use it and then just put it back up, and there's no other kind of components. But over here I see that this one is actually mounted on a bar, and what might be the pro of that application?
So I had mentioned that some people use these as a secondary shower head, and with the bracket to use the hand shower we are mostly holding it, right? So if you wanted to stand underneath this like a regular shower head, I could put this up and angle it and stand underneath it like a shower head. This is also really valuable with people sharing bathrooms of different heights and also with children, because someone who is 6'5" might want the shower head mounted really high, and maybe they have a partner or children who are maybe 5'2". Those are very different heights, and water cools down as it comes out of your shower head. So having something be adjustable and bring it lower down for someone who is shorter is also of high value.
Yeah, that's a really great point. I feel like you're kind of almost making like a little mini shower system for kids who might be transitioning from taking bathtubs to taking a shower now.
Yeah, it's also good for people who don't want to wash their hair every day, so you can bring it down lower and you don't have to worry about getting your hair wet.
Right.
This is our interactive shower head and hand shower display. Before we installed this, we'd really have to sell an idea of how a shower is going to feel to the end user. And we all have different preferences, right? We might not like how strong this spray is or how soft this one is. So it's really important to have things that are live so you could get an idea of what it would be like as the end user installing it. People love the idea of rain shower heads, but they don't often realize that rain shower heads generally don't have the same pressure as a regular shower head. So it's important to showcase how different styles, different manufacturers, how they deliver water, because that might make or break what you end up selecting in your bathroom.
That's a great point. Well, why don't we turn on a few and see what they look like?
So I had mentioned rain heads, which are typically mounted either from the ceiling or the wall, straight above. Rain heads are generally larger, which equals a softer pressure, right? When we think of rain, we don't think of strong pressure. So it gives you more of a engulfing relaxation, but not always the best to wash your hair. So this one right here is a 12-inch rain head, which is typically on the larger size. So it comes down, and it's not as pressurized because it's the same amount of water that's going through it as something that would be smaller. Whereas if we did something on like a smaller scale, like a regular shower head, it would be more concentrated and you would have more water pressure. This shower head here offers a much stronger concentrated spray. Typically you'll have maybe 3 to, depending on the vendor, 6 different spray patterns. You'll have full, sometimes a massage feature, and sometimes just a strong jet, which is good for someone that might want to like pinpoint something on their back. But having a good full spray is super important because that's what you're going to be using most of the time. That one has a little lever on the bottom that allows us to easily switch functions.
Yeah, speaking of jets, it seems like we have a couple examples on the wall here. How might those perform?
So someone who just came in from the gym, maybe their back's sore, they might want to go higher, lower. It allows for great flexibility on placement. There you go.
Well, Rachel, this is a great resource for clients to come in and see the different spray patterns and, you know, how a rain shower might perform as opposed to their regular shower head.
It's my favorite part of the shower room, actually.
Rachel, there's so much to consider when looking at vanities. You've got furniture style, toe kick style, floating, console, pedestal. Like, what are the differences between all of them?
So console sinks, like this one here, tend to be more of a style versus a functional piece. As you can see, there's no storage, right? So typically we'll see those in half baths or powder rooms. It's great in a small space because it doesn't box off the area, but you have no storage. So if this is your only sink in your bathroom, you would need to have some sort of cabinet to keep your toiletries, other things in. So this is purely a style standpoint. This one happens to be very gorgeous. It has a Carrara marble top with beautiful polished nickel legs, with the Carrara being part of the sink, typically best for hand washing, not everyday use of like shaving or brushing your teeth in that type of material.
Yeah, when it comes to powder rooms, I love to have them a little bit more glam than functional because like you said, you don't need a ton of storage. It's just to kind of get in there and get out, but also have a fabulous design in there. And similar with the lack of need for storage, you could do something still traditional, but have a pedestal sink as well.
Correct. So pedestals tend to be a little bit more classic. There are some modern options. Again, for small bathrooms, they're perfect because again, we're not boxing off the area, but generally there is no storage. It does hide some of the plumbing, which the console does showcase. Typically, small bathroom or powder room is where we do pedestal sinks for the same reason.
So we touched on console sinks and pedestal sinks. There's a couple of vanities in front of us here. What are the differences between them?
So we have what we would consider more of a classic vanity here, which is a very typical, has a toe kick on the bottom, so very more standard. These are going to give you a lot of options for storage needs. So you might see these in a guest bath or a kid's bath. They come in a myriad of different sizes, but this is kind of your everyday like standard vanity. This right here, which is kind of a hybrid between a console sink and a vanity, where it is open, it has a leg system, but it provides a shelf for, as you can see, you could put towels down there or toilet paper. And it also has a functional drawer, which would be good for, you know, a small bath or even a powder room where you might want to keep a few things. This is a little bit more furniture style, but it still offers a nice small level of storage need. This one here is more furniture style, very mid-century. So if you're looking at this, this is just 2 doors. It's not really giving you the storage needs that drawers provide, but it is open, has these really beautiful tall legs, but inside you would have to add things in order to compartmentalize your needs, right? So someone might choose this for a powder room as well. Maybe they want to do something different other than a console or a pedestal, or if it's really style driven, you know, they have a great linen cabinet somewhere else and they really just want this piece to keep, you know, their spare toiletries, but they're not really fighting for organized storage that drawers provide. This is a beautiful option.
Yeah, I think when it comes to organized storage, like you mentioned, we're kind of fighting function and aesthetic here, where I like how this one is sleek with the 2 doors, but when you open it, where am I going to put all my little things that maybe I want grouped together? Whereas with this one over here, maybe you're kind of getting that advantage with, I'll just throw it in a drawer, this drawer is for something else, or with kids, it's like, that's their side and this is my side, and it's kind of broken up like that a little bit.
Yes, we typically, this right here is a variation of the classic vanity that we've turned it a little bit more furniture style with a more beautiful door front and elevated legs, but really function is at the forefront of this decision, where it has all the drawers and door space. It's kind of like a hybrid option where you can get something beautiful that is also functional.
If I like this style of the vanity, but I wish there was more drawers, more doors, is that something we can do?
With certain vendors, we can almost do full custom. There are a lot of configuration from this vendor, which is Birch, where they offer a lot of different ways you can create your perfect storage needs.
And how about finishes too? This one's in white. Can I have it in other colors, maybe wood?
Absolutely. This one, they have an assortment of finishes, different woods, different stains. In fact, this vanity here is of the same manufacturer, and this is in a cherry with a nice warm stain over it, which is really giving a nice warm mid-century look. But this, a lot of people like classic white because there's really it's very timeless, so classic white is very much going to be a default in a lot of our designs here, but they do blues, greens, you name it. There's a lot of options.
So both being from Birch, if I wanted that cherry stain on this and the white on that vanity, I could do that.
Absolutely.
Nice. So when might someone consider a floating vanity as opposed to something with furniture legs or toe kick as the bottom?
Floating is really a more modern concept, in my opinion. For the customer that wants something a little bit more streamlined, they might opt to go with something that relies on the wall. It is typically a lot easier to keep clean, so you had mentioned not hiding tile with the console. You can also achieve this with the floating vanity. You do, in a lot of instances, lose a little bit of storage because that space that you were using going down to the floor is now not being occupied, but it is a nice clean look.
Right. I think another thing to think about is the cleanability, where you could get a mop or a broom under here, whereas this one with the legs, still achievable, might be a little bit more difficult, but the toe kick, having that completely closed off, you're not going to get dust or hair ties or any products lost under there. Right. Really customizable based on the needs and the functions of the users of the space.
Absolutely.
So we talked about Birch being one vanity manufacturer. We also have Strasser, and what is the difference between them?
So they're very similar on their base concept, where they are really reliable cabinetry lines, both very similar on their construction. They allow for a lot of customizability. They are both made in the United States. Strasser tends to take it a little bit up a level when it comes to their offerings. You can go full custom with them, which allows for a lot of different choices that maybe a standard size from Birch wouldn't allow.
Cool. Well, both seem like great manufacturers. Let's see what we might be able to build on their configurator on the website. We'll start with a Vanity, maybe a 36-inch, and I'll find a nice color here. Something a little bit more modern would be nice, but still with legs.
Do you prefer more drawers or less drawers?
I think I like drawers because I can organize them how I need.
So this is an example of the Alki Essence, which allows for, in a 36, to optimize use of all of the open space within that smaller vanity size. It has 3 drawers on the left and then a bottom drawer, which typically would just be open on many other lines. If you had said you don't really care about storage needs, you wanted a simpler look, you could also do just 2 doors and a wide bottom drawer. Some people like the symmetry of this versus the offset look of the multiple drawers. And you can also do different door styles. What's shown on this configuration is a very popular reeded door style, but we can do something a little bit simpler if you wanted.
Yeah, let's check out something a little bit more mainstream.
If we wanted modern, my first brain goes to slab, which has no detail on it. Very easy to keep clean because it is flat, and allows for a lot of flexibility on different hardware options.
Yeah, let's check that one out in maybe this pecan cherry sample here. I like kind of that dark color to it. Feels very natural.
Yes, so they have a lot of stain options, so that pecan cherry. So the configurator is really great because it kind of gives you an idea of what this vanity would look like in the color, instead of being like, well, I like this and here's the sample. It's computer generated, but it's a good idea of what you would get.
That's really cool, Rachel. I think when clients come in, we're able to use this as a tool to really start to flesh out what their bathroom might look like. And at this point in time, we might even have a stone to consider of like, what does the top look like? And we can grab the faucet that they want on top. So this is really great to kind of work together and see what our choices are for the customization.
Yeah, and you could go fully custom too, where if none of these standard options are right, or say you loved the look of the 36 but you needed a 39, that's not a standard offer. Most times it's not. They'll create it, and it's a very simple process. So it's giving you a guidance on what you want, but they really have no limitations on what they could offer.
That's great. Rachel, I feel like an overlooked item in the bathroom is the toilet. Where do we start when it comes to that?
So a lot of people think it's just a toilet, but they often don't realize that there are a lot of differences between each toilet and what they offer you other than flushing. Things to consider are whether or not you want something more traditional, more modern. A certain important piece to me is whether you want it to be either one piece, one piece where there's no separate tank to bowl, and skirted where it is flat on the sides, versus a more traditional way of, say, a 2-piece where there is a very clear seam. These are in 2 separate pieces, and non-skirted, which is the worst place in the house to clean.
Yeah, that cleaning part is kind of where it gets you, where like all that dust hides, where you don't have to go as modern with this toilet, but just having to wipe the side and not get